You're watching PowerNation.
We just gave the Granada about 400 more horses to play with. All that extra power demands some serious upgrades.
Today on Engine Power, we are getting back on one of our favorite projects that we have done in a while, our 1977 Ford Granada Ghia. It's even Vista Orange. Now, we brought this car in because it was a low-mile car we just could not live without, and we chassis dynoed it and it made dismal power. So we pulled the engine and made a couple of street modifications to it to spice it up a bit. Check it out. There we go. It didn't like a wide open throttle.
No, it was a little rough. Definitely starting to miss there. Not bad though. 101 and 185
triple digits. It made triple digits on the first hit.
That's not bad. These things made like 120 or 130
yeah.
stock, so you know that's what they claim. So
when most people think of their favorite cars from the 70s, the Granada does not often make the list. But honestly, we like almost everything about it, except for the underpowered engine. We've decided to make this Ford a sleeper of sorts, adding a stroked 347, along with several other high-performance upgrades.
we removed the exhaust, transmission, and finally the engine. The teardown went great until we discovered that the block had been bored 60 over, and our new pistons are 30 over. Fortunately, we had a 30 over block from a previous project. With the donor block in the Sunnin SV15, we torque plate honed it for proper piston skirt clearance and cylinder finish, opening up the bores by 1.5 thousandths. In case we decide to run a power adder, the rings were gapped at 26 thousandths on the top and 28 thousandths on the second. Then we assembled the 4032 alloy forged Molle pistons and the Eagle 5400 long forged H-beam rods. Finally, the rotating assembly could come together.
A custom ground billet solid roller camshaft was next. Intake duration at 50 thousandths lift is 248 degrees with the exhaust at 260 degrees. Lobe separation angle is 110 degrees. The cam was degreed at 105 degrees of intake centerline, which is 4.5 degrees advanced. Comp solid roller lifters, AFR Renegade 205 cylinder heads, 6 850 long push rods, and Jessel 1.6 ratio shaft rockers completed the top end. After installing an Edelbrock Victor Jr. intake manifold and a Duralast water pump, we camouflaged all of the aftermarket parts on this engine with a patina paint job. Then we headed to the dyno cell.
Well, that sounds like a real engine right there.
531.2 horsepower and 443.5 pound-feet.
That's nice.
Yeah, and peak power happened, let's see, right at 7,100. Our plan of maybe quieting this down might not work as well as we think, but I think, you know, we get that a lot, that people, they think that single planes can't, you know, they're not street manifolds, or, you know, you can't put a big carburetor on a street engine, but I think this thing's gonna run just fine.
It's gonna run just fine the way it is, and it's gonna be a lot of fun in the old frame rails of the spicy Granada there, so.
Heck yeah, well,
nice
good
job.
day.
Happy times.
Now, since you last saw our 347, we got it off the dyno cart, and onto a regular engine stand. So it should be ready to go right in. The only problem we're going to run into is the headers are not going to fit in the car. I've already measured it. We're going to have to figure something else out. We did have some concerns from people that this wasn't going to be a street engine with the solid roller and the single plane intake, but it's going in a street car, and it's going to run just fine. The headers on the engine are just for use on the dyno, so we'll remove them. This gives us clean access to the old, worn-out engine mounts which need replacing. Since this is probably going to be the last time the engine gets dropped in our car, we wanted to take a minute and replace the motor mounts because these are looking a little worse for wear. The rubber's starting to crack and deteriorate, and with all the extra power we're going to be making, we don't want to risk having a worn motor mount fail and the engine moving around inside the engine bay. So we're going to put a new set on, and we got them from rockauto.com. It's really easy to find. We just broke it down by year, make, and model, so we searched for a 77 Ford Granada, picked the 302 option, and there were several options. These came at a great price, and they're going to do a great job of keeping our engine in place, but not compromising that street ride that we're looking for. All we have to do is take the old bracket off of the old mount. We're going to get it prepped and painted to match, and then we can get them bolted on the engine and get it slid into place. Several coats of black engine enamel will prevent corrosion on the brackets. These mounts were roughly $10 a piece, so we'd be foolish not to replace them.
Up next, we've said it before and we'll say it again. If something doesn't fit, make it fit. Yeah. We're back on Engine Power installing the 347 in our Granada. Oh, missed the hood ornament by 30 thousandths.
Yeah.
This road race front sump oil pan wasn't designed specifically for a Granada, but it fits like a glove. And since the rest of the engine is dimensionally identical to the one that came out earlier, we have little trouble getting it into place. There it goes.
It's just the paint.
Right?
Okay, yep, go down.
Look at that.
Jumped right in there, right?
Jumped in.
Well, it came out, so it should go in.
Well,
Now comes the hard part.
now this was the point where we know this will be the most difficult part of it is headers.
Yeah. Not a lot of people make performance headers for a Granada.
Right around none.
Yeah.
So this is a very common, I don't know what I'm doing with this.
I don't know.
It's a separate.
We have that set. We have a set for a 75 through 77 Maverick. It's probably going to be close, but we won't know for sure. I don't know what there might be some differences, but we'll see.
There's going to be some differences. Probably steering is the biggest concern, right? And this side looks pretty common, and there's.
Well, that side has the starter in the way.
There's a
This side has
starter in the way and
box.
all that. So
We'll see. I don't know. We'll try them and then go
get
from
them
there.
out, and if we have ways to make them work.
Gonna have to.
We found these Hooker 1 5/8" primary headers at Summit Racing Equipment. They have a smaller primary, but a longer tube than the dyno headers we used before.
I don't know if these are gonna
I
fit.
already don't like this.
They're already not probably gonna.
No.
Well, they're not gonna come that way, that's for sure.
No.
That's okay.
Before you do that, pull a plug out because.
Well, I'm not even close yet. I think what we're gonna have to do is jerk the engine back up, try and wiggle them in with the engine, and we'll pull the plugs just so they don't get hit.
Just so they don't get broke. Not the most popular car to put a set of headers on, so I understand why we're having so many problems, but.
Not a lot of performance parts for a Granada, if you notice.
In a perfect world, we would just build headers for it.
Yeah, say, it would take a good amount of time, but we could make some, some big, primary headers that fit really nice. We're just trying to do it the maybe a little bit simpler way, kind of use what we can get. Cherry.
That is not bad right there. No, that's because it's got that 950 on it that we're gonna run on the street.
950 makes good power.
And it's gonna run just fine. The big problem people have with carburetors is they think they give too much fuel. Well, when you step on the gas and whip the blades open, it wants to take a big gulp of air, and it has to have fuel that goes with it. That's where you run into a lot of your stumbling problems, a lot of problems with the car.
Well, and a lot of
it doesn't
times
do what it's supposed to.
People get they don't realize how much the idle kind of affects the transition, and they'll get the idle a little bit off, and then it makes the transition really.
If you get the
really
idle
wonky.
circuit off, it will absolutely kill the transition.
Yeah.
And even partial throttle stuff's pretty easy, but if you stomp it down and it doesn't do anything, there's a couple things you can do to make it work. But this is going to work just fine. I'm getting distracted by plugs, and that's the easy part. The hard part is getting the header to work. So
I think we hook up the hoist, try and slide it in there with the engine, and then
we'll jack the engine up.
Yeah, give that an attempt, and if that doesn't work, then we'll start cutting.
I think we're just gonna start cutting, but we'll give it a shot first.
But we have to say we tried. Now we're stuck. Flange through a little bit.
It's hooked on this thing.
Well, I gotta go the other way. Not that way, That's close. Hold on. All right. It's in-ish. It's in the right spot. Right now the engine's forward an inch and it's hitting the fire, and the headers are lined up and they're hitting the firewall. So I think
slides out, it's okay.
Other than that, I think we're gonna have to cut these back 2 tubes out, because the ones that have that weird L, because they're just gonna run into the firewall the whole time.
Why don't we pull that thing back out, cut those tubes off,
and then we'll stick it back
on,
yeah.
And then route some tubes.
Yeah. We hate to cut up a new set of headers, but since they don't fit in the bandsaw, the easiest way to do this is with a Forney abrasive cutoff wheel. Anywhere you make a cut, make sure to leave enough clearance to weld all the way around the tube.
Now that our 2 pipes are cut out, we can get the header in there and see what we have to do for routing. We also went ahead at the same time and cut off the collector flange, because there will probably be some interference on the floor. When you're doing something like this, where something is not actually designed to go into what you're using it for, it takes a delicate balance of precise measurement and brute force to sometimes make things work.
It should fit now.
Now that the floor is precisely massaged to what we like, we'll get it back in and see what's up.
After dry fitting the replacement tubes, the headers are removed and tacked. Then they're put back into place for a final check of fitment before they are fully welded. We'll also weld a stainless V-band onto the collector to replace the piece we cut off.
Even though this particular set of headers was designed for a different application, they seem to go into this side extremely easy.
Well, that's good, because this side took a lot more work, but we have our tubes welded in, we have some O2 bungs to monitor O2s standalone, and we also have V-bands on the end so we can build our exhaust back from there. This should slide in now, but we are probably gonna have to put the transmission in before we bolt it in for real.
I agree with that, so we'll go up in the air and jam her in there.
Yep. Up next, the 347 receives an upgraded transmission that's built for action on the street. We're going to be replacing our stock C4 with an upgraded one, but before we can do that, we obviously have to install the flex plate. Because this engine makes the power level it does and turns a high amount of RPM, we opted for an SFI-approved flex plate in our transmission kit. We're not necessarily going to do any racing with the car, but it's just a little bit of extra insurance for us. We're also going to need some quality fasteners because of that power level and RPM. So obviously, we turned to ARP fasteners and got their Flexplate Bolt Kit. These are made from 8740 chrome moly, and they are heat treated to a tensile strength of around 180,000 psi, which is going to be much stronger than the stock fasteners or even a grade 8 from the hardware store. They come with a great instruction sheet that tells you everything you need to do. So we have ARP Ultra Torque Lube underneath the heads, and we're putting some thread locker on them before they're installed and torqued down. We also went ahead and got one of their Bellhousing Bolt Kits. We've put ARP Ultra Torque underneath the heads and on the threads. These are going to be much stronger than the stock ones, and as an added bonus, the head is a little bit smaller, so it's easier to get to when you're trying to get them installed. All we have to do is get the flex plate on, then we can get our torque converter and transmission slid into place. We'll put blue thread locker onto the bolts before they are torqued to 85 pound-feet. This is the transmission we're going to be using in the car. It's still a C4, but it's been upgraded and is part of a Performance Automatic Street Smart package that we found at Summit Racing Equipment. The car is still going to be used on the street, so it has their street strip valve body, which is a full automatic valve body, so it'll work just like the stock one, but it's going to have increased line pressure and firmer shifts. It also has heavy-duty clutches throughout and their billet Pro Shift servo and billet cover. It comes with a deep cast aluminum oil pan, which is going to be stronger than a stock steel one, have increased fluid capacity, and a drain for easy servicing.
The Street Smart kit also came with a new dipstick, a mid plate, the flex plate we just installed, and a matching torque converter. This converter is an 11-inch and is rated for a 2,500 RPM stall speed. Ours will be a little bit different than that because stall speed is directly dependent on vehicle weight and how much horsepower the engine makes. We will also be filling the entire operation with some Hot Shot Secret Adrenaline NS Nano Shift racing transmission fluid.
We're not trying to fill the converter, we're just putting enough in to avoid starting it dry. It's critical to make sure that the converter is fully seated. Otherwise, the transmission can be seriously damaged during installation. Since the Performance Automatic is the same model as our old transmission, we know it'll fit just fine.
Wiggle and push, wiggle and push.
That's in. We use several different types of AN line and fittings when building engines and hot rods, and that can vary from straight rubber line that has a nylon outer core and sometimes steel wire inside, to straight stainless steel braided hose. AN fittings and lines were created back in the World War II days for aerospace and the military. They were designed to couple hard lines and flexible lines under high pressure. It is a 37-degree flare, which is a metal-on-metal fitting, which keeps it from leaking. Now, there are several different ways that these go together, from standard push-in to push-in with a crimped fitting, also the standard screw-together ones. Now, these are sometimes very difficult to get together, but we found a 100% better way of assembling them from a company called Cool Tools. They have designed specific fixturing for the AN lines, which holds the fittings securely, and are able to screw them together in about 10 seconds for a leak-free seal. They also designed this really slick vise fixture for holding both the line and the crimp fittings, so they'll slide together easy so you can get them crimped up. There are a bunch of different choices for whatever you are going to be doing, so if you have any questions about that, you can always consult the experts at Summit Racing Equipment. Up next, we take care of our Granada's cooling system. The Granada's stock fan is getting replaced with one designed for higher RPM. It will function the same, but provide an extra measure of safety.
We found this aftermarket radiator for a 70 through 75 Granada that almost drops right in. The only thing we needed was a hose adapter that we got from Summit Racing Equipment. We're upgrading the transmission cooler lines with a set of custom Earl's flexible AN lines. Because this is a performance application that we're going to be running on the street, we're going to be adding an external transmission cooler. The higher horsepower output and the higher stall speed of our converter are going to add more heat into the transmission fluid. So we went to Summit Racing and we found this Hayden Automotive transmission cooler. This is really nice because it looks and feels OE, and all we had to do was build this quick bracket that uses some factory holes. We also cut a big hole in the back for air to go through, and we tried to make it as small as possible so it doesn't restrict flow to the condenser or the radiator. The front line out of our transmission is the feed line, so it will come out, go into the radiator transmission cooler, and then it will come out from there, go into the top of this one, be cooled even further before it comes out the bottom and is returned to the rear of our transmission. This transmission cooler came with a set of radiator zip ties to mount it, but we sleep better at night and have the extra gratification of building a solid bracket that will last forever. You know, we don't work on cars a bunch, but when we do, one of my favorite tools to use is an electric ratchet. And this 1/4-inch drive high-speed electric ratchet from Matco Tools is awesome. It's nice and compact, so it fits in tight spaces. It's only about 11 inches tall, and the patented head is about 1 inch wide. It's got a bunch of cool features like a variable trigger so you can start out slow to get the bolt started and then run it in at high speed. It also has a directional light so you can actually see what you're working on. Its compact design comes from the brushless motor, and with the gearbox, it delivers a maximum torque of 30 pound-feet, but it still has a maximum RPM of 320, so you're not standing around waiting for bolts to thread in and thread out. This is one of those tools that if you're working on cars is going to make your life a ton easier. And if you want to get one for your own, you can talk to your local Matco distributor or go get one at Matco Tools.
Some people prefer gasoline power, some prefer diesel power, but no matter what you drive, if you don't take care of your fuel system, it could develop problems later on, and that will definitely hurt performance. Hot Shot Secret has 2 versions of their extreme fuel treatment that can keep you going down the road. Starting with their Diesel Extreme, this is a premium 6-in-1 diesel additive, and it restores throttle response, cleans injector tips, reduces the need for DPF regeneration cycles up to 50%. It exceeds top-tier detergency requirements and boosts cetane ratings up to 7 points. Their Gasoline Extreme removes deposits from the valves and combustion chambers. It is a powerful injector cleaner. It will increase mileage up to 7.9%, which is third-party verified. It also will stabilize ethanol, dissolve gum and varnish in the system, and smooth out your idle. Best of all, they're both backed by a 100% money-back guarantee. We've made a ton of progress on the sleeper Granada today. Next time you'll see this car, it's getting a stronger rear axle, a neighbor-friendly exhaust, and some power-enhancing chemicals.
To learn more about anything you've seen today, please visit our website.